Back in 2006, only 22% of the U.S. population was aware of podcasting. By 2021, that number had surged to 78%. Podcasting is an increasingly popular pastime, with an estimated 120 million podcast listeners across the United States in 2021, according to Statista. Forecasts suggest that those numbers will increase to 160 million podcast listeners by 2023 across America, and are expected to increase by 20 million year in and year out. So the obvious question is, if you're a podcaster, how do you get your content to be listened to by the masses and stand out amongst the competition? Tyler Lacy may have the answers to those very intriguing questions. He's the CEO and founder of PodServefm. They're a podcasting hosting platform with the mission to get your podcast on all of the major podcasting networks and streaming platforms, whether you're a novice or a podcasting veteran. Lacy joined me this week to explain the platform in greater detail and to answer the question, what makes a great podcast? I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. So Tyler, if you're ready, I'll welcome you to the program, and I'm excited to talk to you all about the great work you do with PodServe. Great to be with you this morning, and thanks so very much for being here.
Oh, happy to be here. I'm ready to talk podcast, man.
Absolutely. Now, I know that you run a sort of a podcast practical platform called PodServe, where you help people sort of do all the nitty and gritty work easier when it comes to podcasting. So I'm wondering if you could tell me all about PodServe, buddy.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So PodServe.fm is a podcast hosting platform that I've created. Before this, I was making podparadise.com, a place to listen to podcasts online. I had started that a few years before this. There was really no place to listen to podcasts online. And so over a weekend, I built podparadise.com so that I could listen to a podcast in my web browser and I didn't have to use my phone. I like to have my headphones connected to my computer so I could hear work emails or things like that. And so it was nice to have a website where I could listen to podcasts. And as I was running podparadise.com, I would get emails from people wondering how they could get their podcast on PodParadise. And I would explain it to them. I'd walk them through all the steps that were required. I mean, you have a podcast, but you got to sign up with a podcast host. And once you're at that podcast host, get your RSS feed, get things edited, and then you got to go submit it to the different platforms. And I just realized as I was explaining it to them that was probably too complex for the beginner. I wanted to make things as easy as possible. I wanted it to be that you could just take your podcast, got your audio, you just upload it to one spot, and we'll handle getting you everywhere. We'll get you on your Apple Podcasts, we'll get you on Spotify, we'll get you on Amazon, we'll get you on Google, we'll get you on Podcast Addict, we'll get you on every platform there is. And all you have to do is upload to our platform. And so that was the impetus for me starting PodServe.fm, was that it was just a real simple place to go, sign up, just upload your podcast, not just make it as simple as possible. We have all the advanced features in the background, but really just focus on the most important part of podcasting, which is getting your audio out there. And so that's how PodServe.fm started, and it's been growing from there. You also have me, as I provide great customer support and make sure that if anybody has questions, I respond to them quickly. I let them know everything that they need to do to make sure their podcast is successful. So that was how I started PodServefm and what I've been running for the past few years.
And I know it was also important to you to make sure that uh, it was affordable for people. I did a little bit of research, and I know that you charge like 19 bucks a month for a certain aspects of the service. So tell me why it was important for you to make it as affordable as possible, and the impact that the platform has made, buddy. I'm curious.
Yeah, so we have. I want to make it. I mean, simple has been the main thing, and so it is the $19 a month. With the $19 a month, you get, and that's USD. I guess you're in Canada, but yeah, USD. Uh, you get unlimited shows. So you may start your first show, get going, and then you're like, oh, I'm good at this now. I got a new idea. I want to start something new, and you can just create a different show, all for the same price. Not have to worry about anything, and then you get unlimited episodes you can upload. You can upload as many as you want. So some people upload I have some people who upload like 10 plus episodes a day, and the episodes can be as long as you want. So some people have 10 short episodes a day, and then some people have 4 or 5 hour podcasts. We handle all of that. And so really the $19 a month is an affordable price point, but then just not have to worry about, oh, okay, I made too many podcasts, or my podcast is too long today. I have to like wait until my quota comes back before I can upload it, or I have a new idea for a show. But if I want to use that idea, I have to go and create a brand new show and pay more a month. So I created it with just everything included. You pay the 19 a month, and you don't have to worry about anything else. You just keep podcasting like you normally would.
And tell me, Tyler, I'm curious to ask you about what makes a great podcast in your mind, buddy. What do you think makes a great podcast?
Sure. I mean, that's a hard question to answer. I mean, there's so many different types of podcasts. It's kind of like what makes a great TV show. It'll depend on the type of show, what you're trying to accomplish. But I would say, I mean, first, definitely for a podcast, it's good to have high quality audio to start with. You can get started without having the best audio quality, but as you keep going, you should really work to improve the audio quality. It can be, if the person just can't stand understand people, or there's like some background noise that's messing with things, or people can't listen just due to the quality, it'll have people dropping off. So that's something across all podcasts for sure that you can make sure you have covered. Make sure you get a just decent starter mic, and you can get going from there. So that's just audio quality wise. And then for just a good podcast, like to listen to overall, the hosts have to be engaged. They have to like what they're doing. They have to have either, I mean, if it's a storytelling podcast, have a great story to tell. If it's an interview podcast, ask great questions and really dive in with the guests and get them talking about what they do. But really, it's just going to depend, and you'll kind of find your way to make your podcast great, that really allows you to express yourself through the podcast.
Yeah, Tyler, I look at podcasting like speed dating with a little bit of personality. You're trying to get to the heart of a matter with a podcasting guest or a group of people with the personality attached, while also not sounding like a robot. So I'm wondering your thoughts on the importance of bringing personality and a little bit of flair to podcasting too. I'm curious.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a big important part of the podcast. It's a way to make yours stand out and make your podcast really you, and let you come shine through. You have your own flair to what you're doing. You aren't just copying what someone else did exactly, or you're trying to like fit into something else someone came up with. You're being yourself, allowing your personality to come through, and then really, if you're doing an interview style podcast, let your guest personality come through too. So yeah, that's definitely something I would totally agree with.
And tell me, Tyler, about the nitty gritty aspects of putting together a podcast. You describe yourself as someone that embraces the nitty gritty details that make podcasting what it is today. And a lot of people, they like the fun part of engaging with people on a podcast, but they don't embrace the editing process as much as you and I would. So tell me about really celebrating editing and the nitty gritty of putting together a podcast? I'm curious.
Yeah. The nitty gritty stuff of podcasting is very important. There's definitely the fun part, which is doing the interviews and things like that. And for some people, the fun part is also doing the editing. I like getting into that stuff, making things sound great, going through and finding the spots where audio is not perfect, or things like that, or adding different flares to the podcast. It's definitely a crucial part of a podcast. I mean, like I said in the earlier part, podcast audio can make or break a podcast. I mean, if you have the greatest conversation ever, but people can't understand what's happening, or voices aren't coming through, or there's a loud background thing, even if they love it, they'll turn it off. So it's definitely an important part of your podcast is making sure the post processing, or I guess I would say, after you're done, going back over everything and making it as great a product as you can for your listeners. So using whatever audio editing tool you use. I like Audacity, but there's other ones to really dive in and make sure you have the best sounding audio quality you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, I'm wondering for you, what are some of the differentiating factors that PodServe.fm has that people may not get in other podcast hosting platforms? I'm curious.
Sure, there's a few things. I mean, so the unlimited shows and the unlimited episodes. A lot of the podcast hosts out there either limit you to one show, or you have to pay per show you have, or you have to pay per episode. They give you like a quota. Like a lot of them will say, like, okay, you can upload 1 hour of podcast per month. If you want to upload 2 hours of podcast a month, you're gonna have to pay extra. With PodServe, it's all included. You get everything. You can upload as many episodes as you want. You can have as many shows as you want. So that's a big thing. Something that we have that no other podcast platform has. I was talking earlier about how before I built this, I built podparadise.com, which is a website to listen to podcasts online. And there's thousands of people every day coming to the site to listen to their favorite podcast. At podserve.fm, we promote you. Any user of podserve.fm gets promoted on the front page of podparadise.com. So when podparadise.com loads, the front page has the top 200 podcasts in the world, and at the very top we select 5 PodServe customers to show up there too, and so they get top billing, and so that's a nice way. I think there are 4 million at least podcasts out listed in the podcast index right now, and so getting exposure for your podcast, I know is hard. I mean, it's difficult to get people to find you. With PodServe, we're going to get you in front of people every day. We can make sure that your podcast cover art's showing up. You get some little ads on the site. It's just a nice way to help you get at least a couple of people to click on your cover art, check your show out. You aren't hidden deep inside the 4 million podcasts that exist. And so that's something we offer at PodServe that no one else does. We also offer, great customer support. I mean, that's something that's crucial to us. You get to interact with me directly. I can help you with any questions you have, and you can chat directly on the site. You can send emails, and I'll respond promptly. I really help make sure that you aren't waiting around sending an email and then waiting a couple days to hear back why your episode's not up on Apple Podcasts yet, or something like that. So that's something we really pride ourselves in. And so those are some of the big things at PodServe.fm that we have. And the promotion's a big differentiator. That a lot of people don't get. You won't get anywhere else.
Yeah, and tell me, I'm also curious. I asked you earlier what makes a great podcast, but I'm also curious to ask you, in your opinion, what makes a great podcast conversation, buddy? Because there are a lot of podcasts, and a lot of podcast platforms are a little bit different. So in your mind, what makes a great podcast conversation, bud?
Sure. Yeah. So a conversational podcast, I mean, you need to be, you both need to be engaged, both the interviewer and the interviewee. If it's a interview style podcast, they just both need to be um, enjoying each other and talking about stuff. And then the interviewer really getting the interviewee to talk about what they really want to talk about, and not taking up. If it's an interview podcast, you want to have the interviewee talking as much as possible. Get them explaining and talking about whatever they're on to talk about, and really letting them really get I guess, point across. And sometimes in the interview conversation ones, the interviewee really wants to talk. I mean, they have a podcast and they made a podcast probably because they love talking and conversating with people, and maybe they dominate the conversation a little too much. So like an interview style, it's good to let the interviewee really talk about what they came to talk about or what you're trying to get from them.
And tell me, when you edit a podcast and you want sort of the promotional part of a podcast, if you want to cut it up into promotional aspects of a podcast, what is your best piece of advice on how best to promote a podcast?
Sure, and just promoting a podcast in general. And then you said grabbing the snippets. I mean, if you're going to grab a snippet, you can use, just if you remember the best part of it, grab like 30 seconds of it. You can use the app Headliner to really make a clip with some text on it and something you can easily share and get people sharing the quote that you want to share. And that's a good way on social media to really get people to learn about your podcast. And then promotion wise, another way to promote a podcast. I mean, so yes, sharing on social media, and social media is a great place to do it. Another thing I recommend is if you have other people in the podcast space that have like maybe a similar audience size to you, it's a good idea to reach out to someone who might have people in their audience who would like to listen to your podcast and talk with them and see if you can maybe do what's called like a promotional ad swap, something where you say, okay, I'll give you a 30-second ad on my podcast if you give me a 30-second ad on your podcast, and you both set something up where you can say, okay, hey, here's my 30-second ad. Can you put this on your show? And then I'll put your stuff on my show. And so you can kind of cross-pollinate and let their audience know about your podcast. And then in your podcast, you can let them know about their podcast. And it's really win-win for both of you. And you're just you're kind of sharing your audiences, is making sure they know that each other exists. And you can get more subscribers that way by doing something like that. And so that's a technique people use. It's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, I'm curious to ask you, buddy, for you, what's the best part of your job, bud?
Oh man, I just love building things. And I like, I like the podcast world. I love helping people get their stuff out there, but deep down, I'm a programmer. I love writing code and writing products that people like to use, or creating products that people like to use. I've been in the podcast space a while. I know how it all works. And I definitely know like the nitty gritty of the back end of like how RSS feeds work and how everybody's consuming them. And then all of that, the technical stuff that really goes into it. I mean, when people look at an RSS feed, they don't see anything but like a bunch of code. And I really like just creating a great product and writing software that makes things really easy for a non-technical person. They just it's simple. They come, they upload, everything's super easy for them. They don't have to think about too much. And so I just like writing and improving my product, which is PodServefm, just every day coming in and thinking of a new feature or thinking about how I can make things easier for people. How can I make the best product possible? So that's what I really like, interacting with the customers, getting their feedback, and then implementing what they want. That's what I love about my job.
Yeah, and tell me, I know you live out there in Arizona, and I before this started, I told you last week, here in Canada, we got about 12 inches of snow, buddy. So tell me, what's the best part about living out west in Arizona and all that dry heat, buddy?
Well, because the weather's amazing right now. You're shoveling 12 inches of snow or something, and it's like 70 degrees here. I got my t-shirt on. I got shorts on. The weather's perfect right now, so I'm not shoveling anything.
No need to rub it in, buddy, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, 6 months from now, it will be 105 degrees outside, or I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's going to be hot. And so I'll stay inside until the sun goes away, and then I can go outside. But until then, you stay inside during the time the sun's out, and then you can venture out. It cools down really fast in the dry desert. So
absolutely. I'll give you a little bit of a math lesson, buddy. In order to figure out what Celsius is, you double it and you add 30, but that's how you
okay, so it's probably it's hot.
It's hot enough anyway. So my final question for you, buddy, is I'm curious to ask you about your own personal and professional legacy and how you might want that to be defined.
My legacy, personally, I mean, I'm a new dad, so I want to make sure I'm remembered as a good father to my kids and my wife, and just be nice to the people that are around me. And then professionally, I mean, I don't have any big aspirations to be the big billionaire or anything like that. I just want to build great products that people love that allowed me to live off the things I built. I'm not looking to build a massive multi-billion-dollar company or anything like that. I just want to help people and make a software product that people love. So that's what I want to continue my legacy to be. It's not something big or flashy. Just want to build the best software I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, you brought up being a new dad. New dad. So tell me, what's the best part of that, Bun?
Oh, just watch. It's kind of like living life over again. Just watching them learn things that you forgot were brand new at one point to you too. Just seeing them experience. I mean, recent one was going trick or treating for Halloween. It was fun watching her do that for the first time for real. So it's just kind of going through life again and seeing it through, seeing what they're going to do with their life, what choices they're going to make, where they're going to end up, and just kind of getting to go through all that stuff again.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Tyler, tell me if people want to take advantage of PodServefm, what's the best way they can do that, Bun?
Yeah, just head to podserve.fm. That's PodServe.fm. Once you get there, you can, my chat face will probably pop up. You can say, "Hey, heard you on the podcast. Looking to check things out," and we can chat. We can chat with anybody who wants to do that there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I was doing research over the weekend for this, buddy, your face was the first thing I saw. So,
Yep, I'll pop up.
congratulations on good branding there, buddy. Absolutely. Hey,
Yeah.
Tyler, thanks for getting up early out there on the West Coast, buddy. Really enjoyed learning about PodServe.fm, and I wish you the best of luck with the platform, buddy.
Oh, thank you. Best of luck with your podcast. It was great being on.